Why do fat activists often cry racism when anybody tries to counter their harmful rhetoric and lies?
How is one's BMI a racist tool exactly? Well, I wouldn't phrase it like that. I would say, how is the BMI a racist tool?
Is how much people hate fat people. They just hate them. Like there's like this weird hatred it feels almost akin to racism.
This is not like racism, it is racism. Anti-fatness is rooted in anti-blackness. And the reason why people are pursuing thinness is because they're pursuing proximity to whiteness. The reason why people hate fat people is because people hate black people.
This is your daily reminder that hot people do not go on diets for the summer. Hot people are working on unlearning fatphobia and being anti-racist. Stop cutting out your food groups, Diane.
Okay, so everybody in the comments of that video who either thinks that fat phobia isn't systemic, which is false, or that fat phobia is not comparable to anti-blackness, even though they're literally linked.
Okay, so last video I said fat phobia is the fear of becoming fat, which is true in part, but it's also just in general how society treats fat people and fatness. Just like racism and misogyny, it is embedded in the fabric of our society. We can't escape it. However, fat phobia is deeply rooted in racism. All of it is about upholding white supremacy and capitalism.
Today I'm going to discuss that topic with Lydia of the Body Honesty Project. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Tony with Big T Bariatric, and I'm back at you with another video. Today it is Monday, June 26th, 2023. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. If you could do me a huge favor, please subscribe to my channel. Today I'm going to be joined with Lydia of the Body Honesty Project, and her channel is amazing. It's very much like mine, and so if you like my stuff, you'll probably like her stuff as well. So go over there and subscribe to her. Let's get into this discussion right away. This topic is very interesting, and we often wonder why racism is often brought up, mostly by these white women who just do not like the idea of anybody saying that being overweight is not a good thing. But why is it racist? What are the real origins of racism when it comes to the topic of obesity? Let's get into it. Glad to have you on. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Big T. It's a pleasure to be here.
So before we get started with this, do you want to tell us anything about your channel and the types of things that you cover?
Sure. I'm similar to Big T's content. My channel's called the Body Honesty Project, and I do a lot of fat acceptance debunking, just like he does. I do not have a bariatric story, but I have a lot of other weight loss and weight discrimination sort of experiences because I was a figure skater, and even though I was never fat, I was fat for a skater, which goes through a lot of the similar types of body shaming, but I am still very much anti-fat acceptance, and because I do not think that just allowing yourself to get to be 500 pounds is the solution to body shaming. So
exactly.
That's what my channel's about.
So today we're talking about racism and the whole fat activist argument that it's connected to racism. You know, we both think that it's BS and we don't subscribe to it at all. So, tell us a little bit about your experiences as a woman of color with racism.
Well, I grew up in what I would call a racist incubator. Now, a lot of people assume I'm a lot younger than I am. This is some good Asian blood running through me, but I'm in my mid-40s. So the 1980s for a brown child living on white military bases were incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. Like, I'm talking about being called the N-word every single day. And yes, I know I'm not black, but this is the ignorance of the 1980s. If you're not white, you are the N-word. So that's what it was like back then. I was always yelled at, go home, go back to your own country, go back to your own country. Everywhere I went, I would go home and cry all the time, wishing I would wake up white. So when I've lived through these painful experiences my whole life, even like growing up and getting to be with boyfriends and having their parents say, well, you don't marry brown people. Like, it's just not the same. There are some things that overlap. Sure, I understand the bullying. The bullying does exist, but there was always a difference between fat and race when it came to like birthday parties. So let's say the kids on the playground, the fat kids would get teased and the brown kids would get teased, or the brown kid, the one. Fat kids were still invited to the birthday parties. Fat kids still made it to some play dates every now and then. Like, we were not, I was not welcome in other people's houses. I used to have to call ahead and say to my friend, does your parents have a problem with my race? Like, that was a common question I'd have to ask, because the last thing I wanted to do was get to someone's front door and not be allowed in. And I'm not making this up. I know people think that racism wasn't like that in the 80s. In small communities it was.
Yeah. I mean, racism is definitely something that does exist in our society. I know there's a lot of people who try to deny that, but it absolutely does exist. And if you talk to any person of color or any minority, you would know absolutely that it does exist, because they experience it every single day.
Yeah.
But when we talk about fat activism, and they definitely try to hitch their wagon to every single type of discrimination or minority group or whatever, and they try to compare themselves to that. But I really think it's nonsense, because there's really nothing you can do to change the color of your skin.
No.
There's a lot I can do to change my size, and I have, because I have experienced discrimination because of my size. I was denied jobs. I, didn't get certain perks and stuff that other people have. But do you know how I changed that? I lost weight. Like,
yeah, you're doing it.
Yeah, you can fix it. Like, there's things that you can do so you experience less of the consequences of being obese. So I really don't understand this whole argument. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at a TikTok from somebody who tries to connect racism with fat acceptance. And we're going to kind of pull it apart here and see what we say.
Here's your reminder that fat phobia is rooted in racism. As always, if you haven't read this book, go do that. The main thing to understand is that for the last 300-ish years, white folks have been marketing fatness as a black trait.
So when they keep pumping up this book, what do you think about it? Have you heard of it?
Have I heard of it? It's the only book they have. It's not like they ever offer like a plethora of resources. Is one book.
Yeah, one book.
One book. And it's anecdotal, isn't it? Is it actually scientific? I don't know. I should talk to Sam, because she did a deep dive on that book. But I've heard there's a lot of problems with it. And I'm not saying that some of the stories are not true. Of course, that probably has a lot of fact in it, but it's not the end-all, be-all. I agree that fatness has been somewhat painted to be a black trait, but that's not where fat phobia started, like with the tie to race. Like they it's really ignorant to think that the world started with the United States.
Yeah.
Because they're going just 300 years ago, this is the way it was. And like, so the rest of the world that also had problems with obesity, that didn't exist. The Greeks and the Chinese, who go back further than 300 years. Also, Hippocrates has, ancient Greece documentation about the dangers of obesity. This had nothing to do with race. This was happening on another place. Their focus is just on colonization, America.
Yeah.
The rest of the world also has a problem. You go to anywhere in Asia. Like, I'm a large over there. I'm like an extra small here, and I'm a large over there. Everyone is small. And you think you're fat shamed here?
Yeah, I mean, like, you just make a great point, how obesity has existed for thousands of years. It might not have been as common back then because food wasn't as readily available as it is today. They didn't have McDonald's, 200, 300 years ago, or even 1,000 years ago. Of course, we know that, it's been around since the 50s. So when they keep talking about how fat shaming and all that stuff started 200 years ago when they were slaves, it's like, no, they knew the dangers of obesity for thousands and thousands of years.
Yes.
And like you just said, the Greeks and the Chinese, and like they studied it. They understood that there were consequences for being overweight. And in some context, if you were overweight, it wasn't a bad thing because you had access to resources that the poor didn't have. So you were seen in a better light.
Right.
But as they started to realize, oh wow, these overweight people, they were not living their best lives. They were sick, they had a hard time breathing, they were more susceptible to diseases and issues like that. So it's like, okay, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see, okay, well, being overweight stresses your body out, so it's not necessarily a good thing, right?
Well, it's just also use your eyeballs. When you see a 400+ pound person struggling to walk, struggling to breathe after climbing half a flight of stairs, like, I know it's like, oh, you don't know that person. Can we not use some critical thinking? Is that healthy? Is that healthy? Like, no. It's not me judging something I know nothing of. It's just being critical.
Yeah.
Critical thinking, not deliberately critical.
And, I also hate this whole argument that if we tell people that maybe you should lose weight, that we hate them, that for some reason we're being racist.
It's
When
eugenics.
it's
It's you wanting
eugenics,
to
yeah.
wipe them out.
But it's mostly like white women who are using this argument that it's connected to racism. And it's like, okay, well, if somebody told me, a white man, that me losing weight was racist, I don't get that argument. I mean, I'm trying to lose weight to save my life. I'm not being racist. I'm not trying to tap into some 200-year-old racist thing. It's like, there's no connection whatsoever.
I know.
It's just stupid.
I want to see one person, who is like me, like a person of color who is not fat, who says anything about BOPO. Like, who's not queer, who's straight, not fat, but of color, who apparently belongs in BOPO according to who it's for, who actually says they're part of BOPO.
Yeah.
And when I say says they're part of BOPO in the crazy BOPO, because there's a bunch of people, like if I walk into my dance class and I mention body positivity, every single person there will say, yeah, I'm body positive, because they all have the secular meaning of body positivity that most people have, which is actually feeling confident about your body. You actually have to be exposed to this crazy sect on the internet to know that BOPO is the other thing. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I was telling you before, like I had no idea these fat activists existed. I had no idea that this attitude existed where it's okay to be fat. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no consequences. Live your life and be happy. And I'm like, as somebody who was there, it's like, you're miserable when you're that big.
Yeah. Like, funny thing is, I'll tell you something about the origin story of my channel. I started out as my 25-pound yo-yo. And after the first year, I switched to the Body Honesty Project. And the beginning of my channel, it was all about, I used to struggle up and down those 25 pounds. And there was all these tiny little diet lies I would tell myself, like, oh, my clothes just shrunk in the wash. And I'm like, no, you've gained weight. All those like little lies of like, oh, this sandwich is only 300 calories. And I'm like, that's what's 1 tablespoon of peanut butter. You clearly put 3, all of those kind of little lies we tell ourselves. That's what my channel was about. The little lies. And then about, I don't know, 6 months in, I discovered fat acceptance. And I'm like, I had little lies. I had small lies. Y'all have, I don't know, like, delusion, out and out delusion. So then I switched over to Body Honesty Project, and I spent more of my time critiquing fat acceptance, because I felt like, well, maybe I'm going too far into the little details about like dressings and toppings and little lies we tell ourselves here and there. I'm like, maybe I should start with the big things, like being fat is not good for you. Stuff I didn't think I'd have to say, But
yeah, my channel had sort of a same origin. I mean, I started just covering my own diet and, my journey with weight loss. But as I was getting into it, I'm like, weight loss is kind of slow. I don't really have any updates for anybody, but I was making videos every single day. I'm like, I need something else to talk about. So I started like reacting to my 600-pound life and stuff like that. And like, as my channel started exploding, talking about that stuff, I got more and more requests from people like, why don't you cover Amberlynn Reed? Why don't you cover Hungry Fat Chick or Fat Sapphic Bro or any of these people? And just as soon as I started like digging into them, I'm like, I'd never heard of this attitude before. Never in my life did I realize these people existed. And it was just absurd, the stuff that they were spouting, because I'm like, what they're saying about being obese is completely contrary to my experience with it. Like, it was miserable. There are complications.
Yes.
There is something wrong with being fat.
Mhm.
And it's like I try to counter like the negative parts of it while also being positive and saying you can have confidence in yourself and love yourself and be a person of respect. Like, as a human being, yes, we're human beings, but to tell somebody that there's dangers to being obese, that's not disrespect, that's love.
Exactly.
Because it's like when you're living that and you can barely live a normal life and you're struggling with everything and the pressure that you put on everybody around you. And I got a comment on a video yesterday, well, just let people live how they want to live. It's like they can live how they want to live. But I'm going to get this message out there that being obese is not a good thing because it's dangerous. And it's not just a person hurting themselves. They're lying and they're spouting these lies everywhere, and they have millions of followers. A lot of them do,
Oh
like the
yeah.
Test Holidays, and it's just they are hurting other people and they're dragging a younger generation down with them. And a lot of these fat activists are having kids
Yeah.
and they're telling them the same lies. And so now we have a problem with childhood obesity.
Yeah.
And kids are dying. I covered a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old who died from obesity.
It was so sad.
I mean, it's just terrible. So, I mean, that's kind of where a lot of my channel has been focused now. I still try to do reactions and I do talk about my journey from time to time, but it's just a bad argument that needs to be countered out there. And so I'm glad we have people like you and others who are
Yeah.
we're kind of joining together like a superhero
Yes.
anti-bopo
Or
force.
coalition of some sort, the anti-bopo.
All right, let's get back into this clip.
And this is regardless of whether or not Black people individually were actually fat. That was irrelevant. The message they spread was that Black women specifically were ravenous and uncontrollable, and these barbaric traits made them fat.
So I think it's funny here that they say, irregardless of whether or not they were even fat, they were attributed to being fat for some reason. I don't know. What was your take on that?
I think that I think that if we go way back when this was happening, remember our perception of fatness has changed dramatically. My fattest is like average now. When I was at like 165 pounds, I felt huge. And according to BMI, whatever, that's like at the end of overweight, beginning of obesity. But that body right now would be considered completely average now. What I think is the difference in body type between a normal, like an average white woman versus an average Black woman, they might have considered fat, but I'm talking about like 20-pound difference, or like them looking at someone like Michelle McDaniel and calling her fat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's, and if you have more muscle, you probably eat more. And maybe they're, again, stretching it, ravenous. Like skinny white woman needs 1,200 calories. Black woman working all day in the field needs 2,000. You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking that maybe those are the loose facts that it's based on and then exaggerated.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely has to be exaggerated because, like you just said, I can't imagine people working out in the field all day with very minimal access to food were very obese. I mean, it's
no, I think that they were probably muscular, and I think that there was a lack of understanding.
I mean, they started to develop their own culture with food and stuff like that, which is great culture. I mean, I lived in the South and I've eaten lots of good soul food and stuff like that. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's completely different than what we're seeing today, where people are just completely going nuts with the amount of food that they're eating, and they're gaining 100, 200, 300 pounds. And then saying, oh, well, if you call me fat, well, then you're just racist because there was a problem with calling people fat back in the racist days, and it's just
I agree.
It's the dumbest argument.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue.
On the flip side, thinness was marketed as a white trait. Again, regardless of whether or not individual white people were actually thin, that was irrelevant.
So if thinness is a white trait, why is fat acceptance full of fat white women?
Exactly. Yeah, I just don't get it how thinness was a white trait. I mean, if you were a slave master, again, you didn't have to work in the field and you had more financial means, you were probably the fat cat, right? I mean,
Yeah.
anytime we talk about what capitalism is, and we're going to get into this just in a little bit because she mentions capitalism, but it's like you see this white politician who's fat and smoking a cigar and has all the money, and the fat cat, right? You know, it's
Exactly. I
like,
bet you that term is going to get canceled. Fat cat. I thought about that as well. In fact, one of our local sports teams was called the Fat Cats, and I'm wondering, like, I think that words and terms like that are about to get canceled.
so 10 years from now, somebody's going to say Big T used fat cat 10 years ago, and you
Yeah.
know, we need to cancel him for
Yep.
using a insensitive term.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing it. Like you just
Mhm.
said, you know, obesity was completely different back then. Maybe somebody was 50 pounds overweight. There wasn't very many, if at all, 600-pound people back
Mhm.
then.
Right.
Like, life was so much more difficult.
No. I know, and I think also some of the diet might have been invented back then to give more energy to people that are working all day with their bodies. You
Hmm.
know, like there might have been a need to make your food more calorie dense because of the work, but then adopting eating that food and sitting on your ass all day is very different.
I mean, that's why we have the obesity epidemic today, is
Mhm.
because our diet changed. And I did a video on why we are, you know, becoming more obese. And a lot of it is our environment has changed. You know,
Mhm.
again, they didn't have fast food and processed foods and all that stuff back then, but we do today, and we've become more sedentary. So that's why obesity is skyrocketing today. It's because we're not out working in the fields. We're
Exactly.
not busybodies. We're just stuck inside playing video games, and then we order McDonald's because it's, you know, it's convenient.
We don't even drive to McDonald's
No.
anymore. That is how lazy we have gotten. We don't even do the drive-through. We pay someone else to do the drive-through for us.
Yeah, that was my experience during the pandemic. And, you know, I did lose a bunch of weight, and I ended up gaining it back during the pandemic because guess what? DoorDash came to my city,
Yeah.
and I was able to, and, you know, some of that was they stopped having food in my local grocery store. So it's became dangerous to go out and go shopping anymore. We were scared. We didn't know what was going on. And so we were ordering DoorDash, and it was
Right.
McDonald's. And so I
Mhm.
found myself going back to my old eating habits. And by the time the pandemic was over, I go back to the doctor's office and I'm 130 pounds heavier. I'm like,
Oh,
what in the
no.
hell happened?
Yeah.
Of course, it was, you know, my fault, and we were eating it several times a day, and, you know, I wasn't being careful.
How dare
Um,
you be accountable, Big T? How dare you? You're supposed to say that it was the stress and it was the external, it was the bullying, it was the fat phobia that did it. The fat
yeah,
phobia
there I
caused you.
am, there I am being racist again.
Yes.
But I really think a lot of people gained weight during the pandemic, not just me. Probably
Mhm.
not 130 pounds worth, but I talked to a
Mhm.
lot of people who were like, "Yeah, I gained a lot of weight. We were all stuck inside, and you know, there wasn't the availability of food, so probably a lot of people ended up, you know, eating their
Mhm.
feelings, and they had nothing to do because they weren't working. They were getting
Yeah.
all this extra money from the government, and so they probably ordered out a lot."
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. But I mean, we can be accountable and say, okay, that's what happened, and then start to do something about it, or we can just blame everybody else and then say it's okay and continue to get fatter.
I mean, yeah. All right, let's continue.
The idea was that white women specifically were refined and restrained, and this led them to having delicate, thin bodies.
What are your thoughts on that? Were
Well,
women thin and restrained?
I think that this also maybe it ties more into misogyny than it does to fat acceptance. When Hannah talks about this all being white characteristics, yet I fail to understand how, if these are white characteristics, why are all the fat activists white women? If fat phobia is based in racism because fatness was considered a black trait, but all the women who are in fat acceptance are white.
Mhm.
What sort of traits did they have to make them their size? Like, I don't really understand how they're hitching themselves to their wagon. If they're saying that fat blackness is a genetic thing and thin whiteness is a genetic thing, and you're a fat white woman, why do you get to hitch your cart to their wagon.
I mean,
That
that's a
makes
really
any
good
sense.
point.
That's what I'm trying to say. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, they're trying to put themselves out there as a disadvantaged minority because they are discriminated against for being fat. But yeah, like you just said, the whole it's racist argument. I mean, they use that argument to shut it down. I mean, that's
Exactly.
exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it so it's as improper in society to mention somebody's fatness as it is to mention somebody's blackness. I
Exactly.
guess,
Yeah.
it's, if they can call something racist, then they can shut down the argument
Mhm.
and they automatically win, and there's nothing you can say or do about it because it's racist. It's
Mhm.
just
I
like
f-
you can't call somebody the N word, you can't call somebody obese. I mean, it's
yeah.
just gonna be like that at some point.
I
It's
feel like they make their math really, really strange. Like they'll start to go down that avenue of like what privilege and oppression and try to say that, okay, well, we're discriminated against um due to our body size, therefore we are oppressed. Well, some people can't control their weight because they're more muscular and they're oppressed and discriminated against. And that's not fair because they can't control it. I can control it, but the oppression is the same, so therefore we should be in the same category now. Like it's always this, like I'm gonna find someone who has a genuine real reason for being oppressed, whether it's race, LGBTQ, trans, whatever. They find those groups and they're like, what can I find that I minorly overlap with? What can I find? We have a little bit in common here. Now where I belong with you. I'm one of you now. It's like just trying to find the tiniest little things that all of these genuinely oppressed groups have. Gather all those things and say, we're one of us, and then stick themselves in the middle and go, now I'm safe. That's exactly how I feel. I don't know if you've seen these pictures, but whenever Tess Holliday does a modeling shoot and she's with like Black and Pride people and I'm like, yeah, this is your circle of protection, Tess. This is what you do. You put yourself with all the other protected groups that we can't say anything bad about, and you stick yourself in the middle. That's what I feel this is.
it's like one of those memes. One of these is not the same. Which one?
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the clip.
Over the years, these messages have become more subtle, but even today, they are still very prevalent in conversations around race, health, capitalism, and poverty.
Ooh, capitalism.
Ooh, the big evil in the room.
This is one of my favorite topics, the capitalism part with losing weight, because they're so quick to jump over on all of the weight loss things and forget all about the weight gain industry. Hello, fast food. You know,
Yeah, I mean, there's
hello, corn syrup production. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many other places that are making billions of making us fat, and they choose to attack the diet industry.
Yeah, the diet industry is tiny compared to the industry making us fat. The sugar industry, the Coca-Colas, the fast
Nestle.
foods, the
Yeah.
McDonald's and Taco Bells and Burger Kings, and it's like, okay, people are gonna try to make a profit on making us skinny. All right, that doesn't make them evil, but I mean, if they're peddling a fake product to make money, and so all the desperate fat people are gonna reach out for it and try to use it to lose weight, and it doesn't work, well, that was their fault for grabbing at that. But they have absolutely no issue with somebody who eats McDonald's every single day, and they contribute to the capitalist economy. Like, there's a
Yeah.
reason why McDonald's is one of the biggest corporations in the entire world.
Well, I can lose weight without putting 1 cent into diet culture.
Mm-hmm.
I can just go to the grocery store and pick the right foods, eat within my calorie allotment, not use Weight Watchers, not use Jenny Craig, not use any of those services, and lose weight. But I honestly don't think I could gain 100 pounds without putting money into weight gain. Like I'm saying,
Mhm.
I don't think I could put on 100 pounds without using like the processed foods, without fast food. Like I don't think that I could afford enough whole foods to get the calories in to gain 100 pounds. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too, because it's like, all right, you are so desperate to lose weight, you realize it's a bad thing. You don't want to be fat, so you're gonna pump your money on into all these quick fixes and cheap topical things and medicines and pills and all this stuff. And you're going to do that because you don't really want to put the work in of doing it the right way. You know, there's a right way. There's a right way to do it and to lose weight successfully. Like, I bought into all this and that and these products and stuff my whole life. I've probably been on every single diet, and every single fat person could probably relate, where they're like, well, I've tried this diet and that diet and it didn't work and I don't know what to do. I tried keto and all these fad things, and oh wow, it's not really working. But what was successful for me is when I figured out this part. I talk about that a lot on my channel, that it's all mental. You know, once you get your brain straight and you're no longer addicted to food and sugar, and you start eating the right things, and you know what to eat, what to look out for, then you start losing weight. I mean, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes work. It's not easy. Even getting weight loss surgery is not the magic thing. It's a tool that helps you, but I lost 100 pounds before my weight loss surgery. So they don't want to do the actual work. They want what's going to be quick and fast. And so for them, what's quick and fast, if it's not a magic pill, it's going to be joining the fat acceptance movement, so that they can build a community around themselves and say, well, I tried. There's nothing I can do about it. I was born this way. I have a slow metabolism, and insert whatever excuse you want to put in here. But at the end of the day, you can lose weight if you go down the right path and buy the right food and eat the right amount of calories.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be insane. It doesn't have to be fasting. It doesn't have to be juice cleanses. Like, and I think that's where a lot of people get messed up. We can do it gradually, but that a lot of people don't want to be patient, and that's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody in a Discord chat yesterday who was like, you know, I was eating some ice cream, and, you know, I told my dad that I didn't eat any carbs. The dad said something like, well, aren't there carbs in ice cream? And so this person absolutely freaked out and said, I'm going to go to my bed and start crying and freaking out, and tomorrow I'm going to fast and feel like I want to die because somebody said this insensitive comment towards me. And, you know, I can't be fat because nobody will like me, and I can't be skinny because nobody will like me. And so I understand that there's a lot of just mental parts of this that some people just can't overcome. You know, they need therapy, they need help. And to think that you're going to overcome eating some ice cream by fasting the entire next day, like, the only thing that my mind went to is, if you're going to fast for that reason, as sort of like a punishment because you ate some ice cream, you're going to start binging by the end of the week, because it's like you're going to starve yourself, and that's not the right way to go. And I'm not saying people can't successfully intermittent fast, but, you know, you got to prepare and plan and, you know, put some effort into it.
See, what you're saying there is very different. Intermittent fasting as a way of life is far different than using fasting as a form of punishment for making a mistake. If it's your way of life and it's your routine, and you're not doing it because you're beating yourself up, it's like, this is just my day to not eat, or this is just what, that's completely different. I think that can be mentally healthy if this is just the pattern of the way that you live. It's only a problem, I think, if it's like, I was bad, therefore I cannot eat today. That's damaging.
Yeah, I mean, it's very damaging, and it shows that you have an unhealthy relationship with food, and you're going to be constantly in the cycle of, oh man, I can't eat anything other than a salad, or else I'm just going to balloon up and I'm going to get fat. But then when you do indulge in a little treat here and there, and I told this person, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of ice cream in moderation. Like, you're going to have ice cream. It's part of our society.
Right.
Like, you're going to go to somebody's birthday party, there's going to be cake there. It's okay to have a little slice of cake every once in a while. I'm like, I lost 200 pounds eating ice cream. It wasn't every day. I was able to moderate. I was able to fit it within my calorie limit. Like, there are ways to eat whatever you want to eat. I had pizza last night for dinner. I mean, I'm still losing weight. I mean, it's you know, there's a way of doing it the right way and still modifying the way that you eat and still losing weight successfully. But you have to get it into this way of thinking that it's going to be a long-term project. You're going to mess up. You're going to slip up. So if you get into the cycle of indulgement and then punishment, well, then you're going to indulge again, because you're just going to end up binge eating, and it's going to be a repeating cycle that you're not going to get yourself out of until you get your brain straight.
Well, one of the things that's always bothered me is that it's very obvious that these fat activists have mental health issues. And some of them are therapists, which I find is very concerning.
Or doctors or nutritionists.
Yeah, and some of them talk about going to therapy. And I'm someone who's been going to therapy for years. And especially going through trauma therapy, it's hard. But out of the dozen therapists that I've had in my life, not one has ever placated my maladaptive behavior. Yes, Lydia, that sounds like a good idea. You should go out for the night and sleep with 100 men. You know, or yes, Lydia, that sounds like a good idea. You should go out and drink a bottle of vodka. You know what I mean? Like when I'm spiraling and I want to do something stupid, like therapists have never said like the maladaptive behavior is good. Like, or it's fine. Yes, continue eating your feelings. It's okay. Like my therapists are not necessarily hard on me about things. Like let's say my problem is shopping. She would never be hard on me and say, you know, you really need to take away your credit card, get rid of your Amazon account. Like she wouldn't be hard on me. But at the same time, there's no way that we would have a conversation and her saying, well, if your feelings are like that, it's okay that you continue to spend money you don't have. It's okay. It's okay that you keep on maxing out that credit card. It's okay. I mean, I understand. You see something flashing on Amazon and you can't help but click on it. I get it. It's okay. Like this is how I feel that these people are getting spoken to. Like my problems are listened to. She's not hard on me. We get to the root of them, and then it's usually a conversation of like, okay, Lydia, what can we do so that we don't make that Amazon purchase? Okay, like we know that other problems exist, but what can we do so that when you see those new shoes, you don't click? But the fat activists and their therapy, it's all about it's fine. It's fine. I'm like, you're killing people with your kindness.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Hannah Talks Bodies is a therapist, like scares the bejesus out of me. Cute fat queer is a coach. Jesus Christ. Like, what sort of advice are these people giving?
When I started with my dietitian, she did it the right way with me. She didn't like put me on some huge calorie deficit and say, okay, you're going to struggle for a while. It was, no, we're going to start slow and steady. And I'm not even going to give you a caloric limit for the first 2 months. It's, you know, you're going to tell me what you're eating and we're going to help you make some better substitutions for that. So if I was eating a lot of bacon, well, then try turkey bacon type of thing. You know, it's, you know, you cut your calories that way by making better decisions. If you drink a lot of soda, switch to diet. At some point when you have weight loss surgery, you can't have soda ever again because the carbonation will hurt your stomach. So I haven't had soda in probably 6 or 7 months. You know, it's difficult, but I don't crave it anymore. I mean, I craved it really bad, but I don't anymore. So, but you know, it's, you got to make those decisions. And so, you know, I thought, wow, you're not going to give me like a calorie limit. So at first it wasn't about losing a ton of weight. That was the end goal. I had to get under 600 pounds for my doctor to do the surgery. But she went about it in a way that, again, with therapy, allowed me to do it successfully, going in slow, learning how to eat, making better decisions, and just taking it slow. But everybody who tries a diet, it's like, okay, you know, I'm going to eat a bunch of crap tonight. This is my last night ever that I'm going to eat this stuff. And then tomorrow I'm going to drop down to 1,200 calories. And by the end of the day, they end up failing because it's like, they don't realize that they're addicted to sugar or that they're addicted to certain types of foods. And so when you start cutting that stuff out of your diet, because you've been eating it your whole life, your body goes into withdrawals and it struggles. And then, so it's like, by the end of the day, you just feel like garbage. It's like the only thing that can make me feel better is if I engorge myself on some ice cream. Or you might be able to do it successfully for a few days, but by the end of the week, you're going to be binging again. I mean, that's just why so many people fail on their diets, is because they don't know the right way to do it. And they just jump in, but they didn't research it. They didn't look into it. They didn't take their time with it. They just jumped into it without any education on it. And then they ended up failing. And it was, okay, well, here's another diet that I tried and failed. So it's impossible for me to lose weight. Or they get to a point where they end up stalling because their body is trying to figure out what's going on, and so it drops a lot of water at first, and then it tries to hold on to water after you lose a bunch of water weight. And then you're like, wow, I'm stepping on the scale, I'm getting no results, this diet doesn't work. So you throw it out the window and you go back to eating the way you did, even though if you would have kept on that diet, even after weight loss surgery, I lost a lot of water weight, and then my body held on to that water after about 2 weeks. So after dropping about 20 pounds those first 2 weeks, I stalled for 2 weeks after that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the stalls are normal, but people use it as an excuse to, well, this
Oh, it's
diet
not
isn't
working.
working. Yeah,
It's not
I'm
working
just gonna
anymore.
throw
I
it
might
out.
as well just go back to eating what I was eating before, and the weight comes back. Go, see, the diet didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's I just can't lose weight because I tried this diet and it didn't work. And so no matter how many diets I tried and failed, it's never gonna work. So it's impossible for me to lose weight. I was just meant to be fat.
Right.
And so it's like a lot of it is an educational issue, and a lot of it is there's a lack of willpower. Well,
I've
Lydia,
never
it
really.
was great to have you on my channel today. I really appreciate you coming back on.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait to do more collabs with you and with others in the community. I'm really looking forward to building our anti-BOPO alliance and doing some more of these interactions together. I think that we are stronger together than individual. I think that if we all unite, we can spread the word and get it out there more. I want people to believe the facts, not the made up faux science of fat acceptance.
Yeah, I'm really honored to join this alliance as well, and I'm very honored that you reached out to me and wanted to collab. And so I really look forward to having you on a live stream and doing more videos with you.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Big T.